We have Dr. Naresh Gunaratnam, a gastroenterologist working in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Dr. Gunaratnam is very much involved in helping and raising the quality of life among people in Sri Lanka, especially in the eastern part of Sri Lanka. It's a pleasure to have you, Dr. Gunaratnam, as our guest for our Point of View, a presentation of Boston Lanka program.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Dr. Gunaratnam, could you please give a brief description about the Vihafta organization that you are part of and its goals and its mission?
Vihafta was founded in 2002 by an American lawyer named Eric Parkinson. And Vihafta means you shall love in Hebrew. We're not a religious organization, but Eric used the word Vihafta to mean sort of the fundamental take-home point of any faith, which is to love your neighbor. So we're a very ecumenical organization, and we have members who are of all faiths, Christians, Hindus, Buddhists, etc. And our main goal is to just serve the people who are in need. In 2002, Eric formed the orphanage in Trincomalee, and we chose Trincomalee because it has a third of each of the ethnic population. It has a third Sinhalese, third Muslims, and a third Tamil. And part of our goal was to provide basic care for those in need, but also a secondary aim was to facilitate the peace process. And in order for that to happen, we really needed all three ethnic groups to intermingle and to work together collectively. And so that was our main goal.
In your website, you have Mahatma Gandhi's famous quotation, "Be the change you want to in the world." Could you explain more about how this would fit into your program and into your work of your organization and your vision for the future?
Well, I'm very inspired by this because I think all of us can sit in a room and say, gee, something bad's happening, we really should do something about it. But nothing gets done unless you get off your feet and do something. And that's the first part of it is be. Be is a verb. It's not passive, it's active. So you really need to get off your feet and do something. And I think those of us who are involved in Sri Lanka relief and work, once you go there, you realize the magnitude of what needs to be done. And you start doing one thing and there are 20 other things to do. So it's a constant journey. I start out thinking I'm doing one thing, and then when I go there, I end up doing 6 different things. So I think anybody who wants to be involved in doing something, it's an active effort. And you really need to think, engage, work collaboratively with as many people as you can. And it's a fun endeavor for me.
You have a special place for girls, Grace Girls Home. We know that most of these girls have gone through so much violence in their lives, yet they believe peace is possible. Could you elaborate more on this?
We have always felt that the girls and women are the backbone of any society. It's kind of silly that in any society the men go in and fight, and then the women are the ones that keep things together. They're the ones that keep the families together. So our concentration has been on girls. There's a greater challenge in Sri Lanka due to cultural issues about how much you empower women. But one of the things that we find in our girls is that the girls are the focus of any family, that if we're going to revive this culture and this country, we have to really empower the women. The women need to have the power to be educated, to direct their family, to have a way for them to care for their own families. One of the things we find is that when we give the girls the opportunity to be educated, they really relish this. And they're the ones that give birth to the children. And so they really have encompassed the maternal instincts, if you will, where they feel that they are the future of the country. And so they are really trying to obtain the skills that one day will allow them to have a family and then potentially provide for that family, for that child. And so our focus is to try to provide these potential mothers with the opportunity to gain a good education, to gain some skills that potentially that they can start working in the future, and then make their own families less dependent and productive members of the society.
Grace Vocational Center is your way of helping the girls and women in the center to break the cycle of poverty. Could you explain how?
The way many of these children have been brought up, many are unable to go to university. They're just not competitive. So we needed to find a way for them to make a living. So we have tried to train them in some non-traditional things like air conditioner repair, bicycle repair, sewing, so that once they acquire these skills, they spend a year and acquire these skills, that then potentially they can go get employment and then support their families and perhaps be independent. And going forward, we know what we offer at the orphanage is a bit of a dependent culture. We take care of all their needs, but when they're 18, 19, they have to start taking care of themselves. And so they need a mechanism to make a living for themselves, and we hope that the skills that we provide them would allow them to get a job.
We know that you are very much interested in reconciliation work and building trust and dialogues among diverse groups to have more peace and harmony. What are your views about the present situation in Sri Lanka, and what are the steps need to be taken?
Well, I think, unfortunately for the last 30 years, we viewed each other as the enemy, and I think we have to step beyond us and say what truly are the enemies that we need to fight, because I think in any battle you need an enemy. And in this battle we also need an enemy, but the enemy is not Sinhalese or Tamil, but rather the bigger issues in society: poverty, illiteracy, lack of equality, lack of appropriate health care, people dying needlessly. Those are the things that we can all say, those are our enemies, and we are going to collectively fight these enemies and try to destroy these enemies. And I think if we pool our efforts, these are battles that are winnable. Right now we have put all of our resources in fighting each other, which is really a waste of time. What have we done in 30 years? Nothing. The country has not advanced. If we can take those same energies and put towards fighting poverty, fighting disease, then we're going to improve the quality of life of the people who are being affected.
In your view, how the Sri Lankan diaspora could play a role in building the shattered lives of those who have been victims of 30-year-long civil war?
Well, I would ask the diaspora, I think there's this tendency to elevate anybody who does work in Sri Lanka as heroic figures, and actually that's really not correct. I'm certainly not a heroic figure. And I would ask the diaspora to say, if you get involved in helping Sri Lankans, your life will be better. Every moment I have spent in Sri Lanka through my multiple trips in doing medical work, doing work at the orphanage, and it's enriched my life. It's enriched the life of my family. And I'll just tell you two anecdotes. Now, one, we're always trying to fundraise and keep this place afloat. A year ago, my wife and I were sitting around talking about another fundraiser. And about an hour later, my daughter, who's 9 years old, came to me and said, "Dad, here's $22. And I said, "Sejal, where did you get this money?" And she said, "Well, I went door to door and I told them I would make them a bookmark, and they all gave me $1. So she went to 22 houses, had the names of people, and gave me $22. And I don't think I could have ever taught my daughter that lesson. And just because I was engaged in this, she's doing this. Number two, for us who live in the U.S., who want to teach our children about the Sri Lankan culture, which I think is, in many aspects, is a superior culture, because our values are a little simpler. We value family, we value relationships, we value civility. And unfortunately, that's been lost in the environment in the last 30 years. My dad was a physician, and I was born in Sri Lanka. I came here, when I was 7. And when my brother and I would be at dinner table, my dad would always say, "I love this country, but I want to go to Sri Lanka. That's my home." And when he grew up in the 50s and 60s, there was great interaction between the Tamils and Sinhalese, and people came over for holidays, and you were civil, and it was a wonderful place. And he had friends of every religion, every ethnicity, every race, and it was one people that really cared about each other. And I think that's the vision that he had. He unfortunately died when I was 19, but I still remember that's what he meant about, that's what Sri Lanka meant to him. And I think that's what we can capture if we work together, because it is a wonderful country with lots of resources. If the people can come together, it can be a wonderful place.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gunaratnam.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.
That concludes The Point of View presentation of Boston Lanka. Goodbye.